It was one of those stormy nights when the rain doesn't just fall, it pounds against the windows like impatient fists. I was 16 at the time, a quiet kid who spent more time on my computer than with people. That night, my mom was working the late shift and my little sister was staying over at a friend's house. Which meant, for the first time in weeks, I had the whole house to myself. I remember thinking it felt like freedom. Just me, my headset, and the glow of my monitor. I was deep into an online match with a couple of friends, the storm outside muffled by the bass of my game's explosions and the chatter through my headphones. Every now and then, thunder would rumble, but I barely noticed. It must have been close to midnight when it happened. Through my headset, I thought I heard something faint, like a muffled voice under the roar of rain. At first, I ignored it. The storm was loud, and houses creak in the wind. But a few minutes later, I heard it again. This time, clearer. Luke. That's my name. I froze, one hand hovering over my keyboard. My friends kept talking in the game, but my ears weren't listening to them anymore. I tugged the headset off and sat in silence, the only sound the heavy drumming of rain against the siding. Luke. The voice was soft, almost sing-song, carried through the night. It came from outside, near the backyard. I laughed nervously to myself, trying to brush it off. Maybe it was just the storm warping a noise. Maybe a neighbor. I told myself a dozen explanations in the span of a few seconds, but not one of them made my heartbeat any slower. I pushed my chair back and stood, peering through the blinds of my bedroom window. Our backyard was a shadowy mess of trees swaying in the storm, the old swing set rocking wildly. But no one was there. The streetlight at the edge of the property flickered, casting short bursts of light. Between those bursts, I thought I saw a shape standing still in the yard, but when the light steadied again, the shape was gone. I swallowed hard and told myself, enough. Stop freaking out. I went back to my chair, slid on the headset, and tried to focus. But then it happened again. Only this time, it wasn't outside. Luke. It was right behind me. Inside my room. My body locked. My throat went dry. I didn't even have the courage to turn my head. Every hair on my body stood up, my ears straining for the sound of footsteps, breathing, anything. But all I could hear was the rain hammering the glass. I spun around. Nothing. My small bedroom was empty. But the closet door, usually shut, was cracked open an inch. I don't remember deciding to move, but the next thing I knew, I was bolting out of my room, down the hall, and into the kitchen. My chest hurt from how fast my heart was pounding. I grabbed the biggest knife from the counter, hands shaking. The whole house felt wrong, like someone else's presence was pressing against me from the walls. Then I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow. Heavy. That was all it took. I ran to the sliding glass door, yanked it open, and dashed into the storm. The cold rain slapped me across the face, soaking me in seconds. I scrambled up onto the old wooden porch roof outside my window, something I'd only ever done in the summer for fun. From there, the only escape was down. It was at least a 10-foot drop to the mud below. Behind me, the light in my room flickered on. And then I saw it. A shadow, tall, thin, moving across my room. It stopped right at the window where I had just been sitting minutes earlier, like it was studying the space I had abandoned. I didn't wait to see more. I jumped. The landing hurt like hell, my ankle twisted and mud splashed all over me, but adrenaline shoved me back onto my feet. I sprinted barefoot across the yard, down the driveway, and into the street. I didn't stop running until I reached the corner where the streetlights were brighter. My phone was still inside, but a neighbor's porch light was on, and I banged on their door until they answered, breathless and dripping wet. When the police arrived, they found the sliding door wide open. My room was a mess, drawers pulled out, closet rifled through. But nothing valuable was taken. The only thing that unsettled the officers and me was what they found on the porch roof outside my window. Wet footprints. They weren't mine. The intruder had been up there too, maybe searching for me, maybe waiting. I never saw who it was. I never found out how they knew my name, or why they whispered it like they knew me. All I know is, I moved my desk away from the window after that night, and for months I couldn't sleep unless every door in the house was locked tight and my closet light was on. Even now, years later, whenever I hear my name carry through the rain, my stomach knots. Because I can't shake the thought that whoever it was, they weren't there to rob us. They were there for me. I've worked security for over a decade, and most of the time, it's uneventful. You sit in a booth, you walk a few rounds, you sign some logs. The worst I usually deal with are kids sneaking onto the property or a homeless guy looking for shelter. But there's one night I'll never forget, one that still makes me sweat whenever I think about it. It was a rainy Thursday in November. The kind of night where the rain is relentless, soaking through your clothes in minutes, making the whole world look blurry behind sheets of water. I was posted at an office park on the edge of town. During the day, it was bustling, law offices, accountants, small businesses, but at night, the whole place was a ghost town. I liked that about the job. Quiet. Predictable. That night started like any other. I checked in at 10 p.m., did my first patrol around the buildings. Everything was locked up tight. The storm made it hard to see, but I carried my flashlight and moved slow. When I got back to the security booth, I poured myself some coffee and watched the rain streak down the glass. Around midnight, the first weird thing happened. The motion alert buzzed on the monitor, camera 3, the rear parking lot. Normally, that meant a raccoon or a stray cat, sometimes just wind blowing trash past the sensor. But when I leaned closer, I saw something. There was a figure standing at the far end of the lot. Not moving. Just standing. The image was grainy because the lens was fogged with rain, but I could clearly make out the outline of a person. I picked up the mic and spoke into the PA system. Private property. You need to leave. No reaction. The figure just stood there, half hidden by the storm. I stepped outside with my flashlight, sweeping it across the lot. The rain pelted me so hard I could barely keep my eyes open. But when I looked toward the spot I'd seen on the monitor, there was nothing. Empty pavement. I told myself the camera had glitched. It happens. But I couldn't shake the unease in my stomach. At 1 a.m., the phone in one of the offices started ringing. Now, you have to understand, at night, all the phones are supposed to be off. The businesses are closed. No one should be calling. But I heard it plain as day, echoing through the hall of the building I was making rounds in. A sharp, shrill ring cutting through the sound of rain hammering the roof. It rang 3 times. Then stopped. When I got to the office where I thought the sound came from, the phone was silent. The light on it wasn't even blinking. I stood there for a long minute, dripping rainwater onto the carpet, my flashlight beam shaking in my hand. Then I told myself, you're tired, hearing things. That's all. I wanted to believe that. But by 2 a.m., I knew something was wrong. The alarm panel in the booth started beeping, a signal that a door had been opened. It showed Building C, rear entrance. I grabbed my radio, my flashlight, and my baton. No way I was walking in unarmed. The door was unlocked when I got there. Wide open. Rain had blown in, leaving muddy footprints just inside. I called it in, but dispatch told me the nearest unit was at least 20 minutes away. Stay put and observe, they said. Easy for them to say. I stepped inside the building, sweeping the hall with my light. The place smelled like wet carpet and ozone from the storm. Every creak made me stiffen. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs. Slow. Deliberate. Hello? I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. This is private property. You need to come downstairs now. No answer. I climbed the stairs, every muscle tight, my baton slick in my grip from the rain. At the top, I checked each hallway. Empty. Silent. I was just starting to think I'd imagined it when something moved in my peripheral vision. A shadow slipped into an office down the hall. I bolted after it, shoving the door open. Nothing. The office was empty except for a desk, 2 chairs, and a blinking phone. That's when I heard the footsteps again, behind me. Before I could turn, something slammed into the side of my head. White light exploded across my vision, and I went down hard, my flashlight clattering across the floor. I don't know how long I was out. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes. When I came to, the office was empty again. The only sound was the storm outside and my own ragged breathing. I staggered back to my feet, head throbbing, ears ringing. The phone on the desk was still blinking. I picked it up with trembling hands. The line was dead. By the time the police arrived, whoever it was had vanished. No broken locks, no shattered windows. Just that one rear door, left swinging in the rain. They searched the whole building, but they didn't find anyone. They didn't even find footprints upstairs where I swore I'd heard the intruder. The officer's theory was that I got jumped by a trespasser who slipped away while I was dazed. They treated it like a break-in, but nothing was stolen. Not a single computer, not a single filing cabinet forced open. That's what unsettled me most. Whoever it was, they weren't there to rob the place. They were there for something else. Or maybe for me. After that night, I put in my 2 weeks. I told myself it was because of the pay, because the night shifts were wearing me down. But the truth is, every time I sat alone in that booth after dark, I couldn't stop thinking about the sound of footsteps behind me and the way the phone rang in that empty office. And I couldn't stop wondering, how did they get past the alarm without triggering it? Like they knew the system better than I did. It was supposed to be a normal night in with my best friend, Thomas. We'd been close since high school, and now in our mid-20s, we still hung out often, usually at my place because I lived closer to downtown. That night, the weather was miserable. Rain hammered against the windows, wind howled through the alley, and the streetlights outside swayed like they were about to snap. We didn't care. We had beer, pizza, and an old horror movie marathon queued up. Around 10, Thomas realized he'd left some of his stuff in his car, extra clothes for work the next morning. "Be right back," he said, throwing on his hoodie and heading out the door. I stayed on the couch, scrolling my phone, half watching the movie. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I figured maybe he got caught up sending a text or smoking a cigarette outside. But when 15 minutes went by, I started to feel uneasy. That's when the knock came. It was sharp, deliberate. 3 raps on the door. Relieved, I called out, "About time, man. You forget where I live?" I swung the door open. It wasn't Thomas. A man stood there, drenched to the bone. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his clothes clung to his body, and water dripped from his fingertips onto the welcome mat. He was smiling. Not a warm smile. Not even a forced one. It was wide, unnatural, like he was enjoying some private joke I wasn't in on. For a few seconds, I just stared at him. The rain roared behind him, but he didn't say a word. Can I help you?" I finally asked. He tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me. The smile never faded. I stepped back and slammed the door shut. My heart was pounding. I locked the deadbolt and stood there, breathing hard, listening. Silence. I peeked through the peephole. He was still there. Standing perfectly still. Smiling at the door. After a few seconds, he turned and walked slowly down the steps, disappearing into the storm. I grabbed my phone to call Thomas, but before I could, headlights swept across the living room wall. I looked outside. It was Thomas's car, pulling into the driveway. Relief washed over me. I unlocked the door, stepped onto the porch, and waved. But when I got to the car, the driver's seat was empty. The engine was still running. The driver's door was wide open. Rain poured into the seat. "Thomas?" I shouted, panic flooding me. No answer. That's when I saw it, movement inside the house. I turned back toward the front door. Through the window, in the dim light of the hallway, I saw a figure. The same drenched man, standing inside. Something long and dark dangled from his hand. I don't know how he got past me. I don't know how he slipped inside without a sound. All I know is my blood ran cold. I bolted. I didn't think about anything, just pure survival instinct. I ran down the street, barefoot, the rain soaking me, until I reached the corner store that was still open. The clerk must have seen the terror on my face, because he handed me the store phone before I even asked. I called the police, stammering through what happened. When they arrived at my house, they found the front door wide open, the living room a mess. Chairs tipped over, a lamp broken. But no sign of the man. They did, however, find Thomas. He was tied up in the back seat of his own car, wrists bound with duct tape, mouth gagged. He was alive, but shaken, eyes wide with terror. He told the police he'd been jumped in the driveway, dragged out of the car before he could react. The last thing he remembered was that awful grin. The drenched stranger vanished into the storm. They searched the neighborhood, the nearby alleys, even the woods behind the houses. Nothing. 4 weeks afterward, Thomas and I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every knock of tree branches against the windows, made us jump. The image of that man in my hallway still haunts me, the way he stood there, smiling, holding something in his hand. I never got close enough to see what it was. The police suggested it was probably a crowbar, maybe a knife. But sometimes, late at night when I replay it in my head, I wonder if it was a gun. And if it was, why didn't he use it? The detectives called it an attempted home invasion. You got lucky, they told us. It could have been worse. But that explanation never satisfied me. Because nothing was stolen. Not from me. Not from Thomas. So what did he want? The truth is, we'll never know. He disappeared that night, like he was swallowed by the storm itself. No fingerprints, no leads, no arrests. Even now, years later, whenever it rains and someone knocks at my door, I freeze. My first thought isn't that it's a delivery guy or a neighbor. My first thought is that he's back, standing in the storm, smiling that horrible smile, waiting for me to open the door.